market. The dose rate here in Egypt is 20 milliliters per 100 liters of water, and the application timing is 10 to 14 days. And I cannot emphasize this enough, that we need to stay according to the rules on the label. It's vital that we stick to 10 to 14 days. In South Africa we have problems sometimes with rain, or there's a tractor broken down, I'm sure it happens here, or a spray cart, or whatever the case is, and they try and stretch it. We don't like that at all. Please, if you've got an area that you have to spray and it takes you 2 days to do it, make sure that it's after the 10-day period but before the 14-day. Okay, so the multi-level fungicidal action, it's improved complete leaf and cluster protection, and that's, I'll show you the different modes of action as well. It's a very nice SC formulation, and it dissolves very nicely, and it's rain fast within 1 hour. Now I know in Egypt it's probably not that important, but rain fastness is very important in South Africa. Okay, so just to give you a small synopsis of the history of fungicides, and especially powdery mildew-cides, through the history of Basif, takes us back to 1997 when chrysothimethyl was found. I say find because it's like looking for a needle in a haystack very often, to find that one active ingredient out of, today they say 140,000 molecules get tested before one goes to market. So this was the first powdery mildew-cide. Then boscalid came around, which is an SDHI, different mode of action, although it works in the mitochondria, and I'll speak about the mitochondria of the cell of the fungus later on. And then the third one that came around is a combination of the two, which is Collis, and I think Collis is registered in Egypt, an excellent product for the control of powdery mildew. And now the new one is Fivando. Fivando, new active, metrophenone, new mode of action, and no cross-resistance. Excellent to be able to use it in a program and prevent resistance. And resistance is a very real thing that happens, and we've got to prevent it. Okay, Fivando is an example of BASF's commitment to bring innovation to growers and help them get the most out of every hectare. Return on investment at the end of the day. The group that Fivando is in is a benzophenone chemical class. Okay, metrophenone is the active ingredient. I've mentioned already that we won't get resistance with the QOIs, which is the chrysothimethyl or the F500. Those are the QOIs that are highly susceptible to resistance. And this is where metrophenone comes in, and then all the other ones as well. The biochemical side of the action is not known, as I said, but they do know that it affects the actin. And the actin is a protein that is at the tip of the fungal growth. So in other words, the germ tube, for instance, there's a lot of actin in where there's cell division and in the tip, in the mycelium, and then also in the hypha. So wherever there's growth, there's actin. And as I said, it's in group U8. Okay, this is just a schematic representation of and where those no-go signs are, the red ones over there, indicates where the actin is, and that's where metrophenone works. So it happens here on the germ tubes. That's a representation of a spore with a germ tube, sporangia where spores are formed, and then here on the mycelium and even on the hypha as well. There are 3 levels that Fivando works on. It stops infection, it limits lesions and sporulation, and surface migration. Surface migration is a very unique attribute of Fivando, and I'm going to speak about that now. Firstly, if you look on the left, this is the untreated on your left and Fivando on the right. you will see a spore lying on the surface of the leaf. The aprosorium is the first part of the germination process where it attaches the spore to the leaf. That's the aprosorium over here. And if you look at the aprosorium here, and the one treated with Fivando, you'll see that it's totally distorted. Again, right down here we've got the mycelial growth as well. And this is what a normal mycelium would look like. And then this is what one looks like that's been attacked by metrophenone, the active ingredient in Fivando. It totally breaks the mycelium and the cytoplasm leaks out. The other part that Fivando works on is versus, this is what a normal picture looks like under electron microscope of what a spore looks like. The one on the right hand side is a distortion of, and it will not germinate, so you've got no problems from there on. Totally different in the way it looks. Okay. Within the life cycle of powdery mildew, there's certain areas where Fivando will work, and that's in the very early stages. We're going to be looking at the other products and where they work as well. But focusing on Fivando, it works over here just after sporulation. You have the spore that lands on top of the leaf, and these are the hyphae that grow out, which is like a root, I guess, your first root. The aprosorium at the top there that I mentioned earlier on, which is your attachment mechanism onto the surface of the leaf. And you'll see this is where Fivando works, and then right at the top there is the mycelium that is cracking open and dying. Alright, so there are obviously parts of the life cycle where the fungus of the Fivando does not work, and we must be aware of that. Most products always have an area where it doesn't work, and this is why it's important that we spray preventatively as much as possible. If you already see that you have powdery mildew, and you see that you have about 5% infection, you can be sure that you have invisible infection of another 10%. So in total, you could have about 15% infection. And that invisible part is the part that Fivando will work on. On the adult stage of the fungus, which is already there, it has to go through, it's going to have to sporulate first, and then you'll be able to only control it. In the adult stage, you cannot control it. There's very few fungicides that can do that. Alright, so I strongly recommend that we spray preventatively. And we will speak about, maybe in the discussion of the timing of it, when we start, and our intervals, and how we go about the spray program for Egypt. I can also mention later on what the spray program would look like in the case of the South African conditions. So it starts off with that preventative would be in the very early stages of the aprosorium attachment. Curative will be where the hyphae and mycelium and conidophores are formed, slightly later. But that's all microscopic and you won't be able to see it. This is, again, a picture, a very good picture of electron microscope of what a mycelium looks like. On the left-hand side, actin is the protein right in the point, and on your right, that's the Fivando that has ruptured the mycelium. You can see the crack at the top there, and the total unusual formation happening over here, and this fungus will die. Okay. One of the, I spoke about the migration, the surface migration of Fivando, and this is very unique for this product because what it does is, it has to do with air pressure. It gets very scientific here on the right, but basically what it is when the droplet falls onto the surface of the leaf, it lies there, and then depending on air pressure, we have movement. It's almost like a vapor forming, but it doesn't evaporate. It moves out from where it landed. So it will not move. I'm not saying if you have two bunches that will move from one bunch to the other. It means that on the bunch, In the berries, very often a person cannot, with the applicators we have, you don't always penetrate right inside the bunches. So where you hit the target on the outside, it forms a gaseous layer and it will control the fungus on the inside of the bunches. And this is the surface migration that I'm talking about. With the next picture, I think it might explain it a little bit better, where you have the drops on the leaf on the right-hand side, and in close proximity to where the droplet is, you have the surface migration. And that's a vaporization of the active ingredient, so it enlarges the area of control. Again, on the bunches, which is more difficult to get to, as I've mentioned, within the bunch, you have this vaporization effect and very good control of powdery mildew in places that are very difficult to get to. Okay, so the uptake and distribution. The initial uptake is through the cuticle, which is the wax layer on the berries and on the leaf surface. It collects primarily beneath and underneath and distributes acropetally. Acropetally means movement towards the front of the leaf. If you had to treat the back, it will move to the front or upwards. Basipetal is downward movement, so it moves only acropetally. And then again, the gaseous phase goes right into the cluster, and right up to 14 days has been recorded. Rainfastness, as I said, is very important in South Africa, but it can happen, I'm sure, in Egypt as well. And this is a trial that was done in a greenhouse where they simulated rain, and the leaves were inoculated with powdery mildew. One day after application, they applied, and then 21 days afterwards, they did the assessment. And they put on, firstly, untreated with no rain, Fífándó also with no rain, nice and clean. And then they put on 10 millimeters of rain and 60 millimeters of rain. And even with 60 millimeters of rain, it looks very good. There was a slight little lesion over there on the right-hand side, but in general, that is very good. What I do when it comes to advice to farmers is don't apply any fungicide if you know it's going to rain within the next hour. So this is a very extreme laboratory case. The results in the graphic form, you'll see the untreated on the left-hand side we have without irrigation, and then we have with 10 millimeters of rain after 1 hour, and then with 60 millimeters of rain. So you can see how high the infection is on the left and how low the Fífándó was, very comparable to the standard that was used. It's a very nice formulation. It's a SC formulation. This 20 mils probably was put into the water like this in the measuring cylinder, and it spreads nicely throughout, exactly what the formulators want. And the formulation of products, I'm going to mention a little bit about that later on as well, is very important. This is a very good one. Okay, so how is it going to be registered in Egypt? How has it been registered? Active ingredient is 500 grams of metrophenone per liter, is the formulated product. The dose rate is 20 mils per 100 liters of water at 10 to 14 days intervals. Of course, the disease is powdery mildew, the crop is table grapes. Compatibility is important. That's with other fungicides from BASF. You might want to put a downy mildew product with that. And then the PHI, the pre-harvest interval, before you, up to the point where you have to stop spraying. Bunches is 7 days, and leaves 21 days. In South Africa, we don't have residue information on leaves, but I know it's important here in Egypt, and for breakfast, in fact, I had some of that very nice great leaf. Okay, this was trials that we did in South Africa on Bukatrava. Bukatrava is a wine grape, highly susceptible to both powdery mildew and downy mildew, so you'll see that a lot in the trials that I'll show you today. Way back in 2004-2005 season, We did 2 assessments, 7th to the 12th, 2004, and then about a month later, 2005, a month later. We had 55% infection. It went up to 91%. Now, if you know what a bunch looks like with 91% infection, this is incredibly high. So for products to work like Findog did here is very good. There was another standard of 25 mils and a standard of 60 mils from other companies that were also included. This was, again, trials that we did in 2006, 2007. We had Collis in that trial as well as one of these standards, and Findog. Our dose rate is 25 mils in South Africa. This happens where we tested in Egypt. It might be easier to control the powdery mildew. South Africa, maybe higher relative humidity. And Herbert spoke about the impact of relative humidity on this disease. So we use 25 mils. So I can categorically say that Findog fungicide provides grape growers with a way to control their powdery mildew, protect yield and quality potential. And it's a unique mode of action, and safeguard their return on investment. It's good. We were speaking about what is expensive at the end of the day. Expensive is when you spend your money on a cheap product, end of the day, still get powdery mildew and lose a portion of your crop. Okay, where is Tariq? Thank you, Tariq. Oh, sorry, I've just got some photographs. We did a demonstration trial. We do this in South Africa. We spray demonstration trials. This was an untreated control. You can see how devastating powdery mildew is. The berries crack open, and even the pips come out on the leaves as well. This is very high infection. I had a lot of distributors, growers come through, and we had the results printed of what Findog did. We also had Collis in that versus other standards from other companies. And what I'm saying, this is powdery mildew, like this. And this is what you don't want. Don't let this happen to your vines. You need to protect them. Okay. And this is up in Uppington, where Herbert comes from. He might even recognize this farm, Southern Farms. And that's a picture, and I'm sure Egypt, it's a very dry area. And we irrigate from the Orange River in this region. Thank you.